Today I'm going to show you how to build massive quadriceps. This is the best exercises to build quadriceps in the game. Starting with a squat, but it's not any old squat. I've noticed that a lot of you guys are watching my journey and I appreciate it, but you see my accessory exercises. And now my accessory has become the main movement, and that's the Stiletto Squat. What do I love about this? It puts you in the position to build the most amount of quadriceps. Not all squats does that. For example, I'm a powerlifter. I can squat a lot of weight in my powerlifting. My best in competition is 375 kilograms. Best in the gym is 400 kilograms. But it's not the best quadriceps builder. So this is something that I recommend that all powerlifters include, is some exercise to really focus on building quadriceps. The low bar squat is very hip dominant. So it's not really, it's using my hip extensors, and this is the perfect way to complement that type of movement. So for the powerlifters out there, this is for you. Stiletto squat, right? So what's a stiletto squat? Stilettos are high heel shoes, right? So this is my high heel elevation. Look how thick it is. It's a red bumper plate. That's the thickest bumper plate that I have. So it's really elevated, and that's going to allow me to maximize quadriceps recruitment. So the objective of quad dominant squats is to be deep as possible. So I'm maximizing knee bend. So how do I know it's maximal knee bend? My hamstrings press against my calf in the bottom position. So that's maximal knee bend. When I do a low bar squat, have a look, my hamstrings don't come near my calves. But when I do this one, it's pressed against it. So that's quadriceps and less hips. I'm warming up. This is probably my last warm up set. I don't go too heavy with this exercise because it's kind of like a knee joint isolation almost. So whenever I do those exercises, don't go super heavy. But check this out. High bar puts you in the best position to be upright, which is more quad dominant. Oh. And of course, I forgot to load it properly. We'll do that again. Okay, so since I've watched a lot of people doing this squat pattern, I've also started to notice a lot of mistakes that a lot of people are making with it, right? So it's what I've noticed in my entire career. People say, I'm doing that exercise, therefore I must be doing those muscles, right? So people say a front squat is more quad dominant. Well, it depends on how you do it. A low bar squat is more hip dominant. It depends on how you do it. So I'm gonna go through some of the mistakes, pretty much just the major mistakes that I'm seeing people make with this. Why don't you come to the side and I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm seeing, and I want you to see the exact corrections. So what a lot of people do is they get to the bottom, great, maximal knee bend. But then to get out of it, I'm not using quadriceps to get to this position. The way that you can tell that I'm not using any muscles to get out of this position is, imagine I've got the barbell on my back. If the barbell doesn't lift, you're not using strength to get it out of that position. So this doesn't require any strength to do. So what you're doing is positioning your body in a way to take quadriceps out of it so that you can use your strong hips. That defeats the purpose of the exercise, okay? So if you look like this when you do your stiletto squats, you're not using quads to do that. Of course, they're active to a degree, but not maximally, which is what we want. So to maximize quadriceps, be upright. Upright at the bottom, and to get quad to get you out of the bottom, you need to stay upright from start to finish. So I'm gonna show you that in real time. Set one. Don't know how that looked. I hope it looked okay. That's what I'm fighting for. I could make that movement stronger if I poked my hips back. Exactly what I said, if I did that and lifted with my back and my hips, it would allow me to make that movement a lot easier. That's the cheat, so don't do that. It's not about cheating. This movement isn't about a competition for who's got the heaviest stiletto squat. The regular squat is that. So when I do a low bar squat, of course I care about the technique, but the muscles that I use are irrelevant to me. The amount of weight I lift is the most important, but normally the body just positions itself in a way to use the strongest structures to do that, which is hips for me. But that's not the purpose of accessory exercises. We do accessory exercises to complement the main work, and the objective of this is pure quads. So anyway, so I'm gonna do 2 more sets of that. I'm leaving plenty of repetitions in reserve. As a side story, if you guys have been following my journey, I tore my quadricep a few weeks ago. I think it's 5 weeks ago now, so a little bit more than a few. And it's feeling a lot better. But what I'm making sure with this rehab process is I leave plenty of reps in reserve. I don't take it to the point that's gonna hurt. Just then, zero pain. So I want to keep it that way. Something that you can do very easily is get carried away and just go, doesn't hurt, let's keep on pushing it up until it does hurt, which is a mistake that I've made in the past. So for me, 160 stiletto squat, that's directly targeting the muscle that I injured for 3 reps with no pain, is a great indicator. Next week, I'll go up conservatively. Next week, I'll do 170 for triples. The week after, 180 for triples. And by the time I'm at that point, I'd safely say my quadriceps rehabbed. Anyway, 2 more sets of that. You're recording me now? Okay, let's talk, okay? So let's talk injury rehab. I'm pretty happy with this journey. So I injured my quad 5 weeks ago, a lot of pain. It really frustrated me doing 270 kilograms. First rep came up, second rep just went pop. I could definitely feel it tear. And you know, the next day I wasn't able to do anything. It was like 2 or 3 days later, I was able to do kind of like assisted lessen bodyweight squats and empty leg presses. So that's what I do if it's like a partial strain or a tear type of thing on a muscle, not a complete rupture. And remember, I'm not a physiotherapist. This is not medical advice. This is just what I've learned from my physiotherapist and my recovery and my history. If it's a partial tear, at your earliest convenience, you want to start rehabilitating it by directly training it, putting blood into the area. And the best exercise to put blood into the area is the exact exercise that you use to injure yourself in the first place, but just done with great technique and the appropriate loads that it doesn't actually hurt you. So to cut a long story short, for me to be able to do 160 kilogram stiletto squats, I'm really happy with that. A lot of the times when people injure themselves, and I'm talking to you, if you've injured yourself at home, you'll feel this. You kind of go into depression, right? Am I right? You know I am. Because you think, damn, I've just worked so hard to get to this point and now I can't do it anymore. What am I gonna do? I'll tell you, this is me, 20-something years of experience. I've injured myself before and I've done that. I've done the depression thing and now I realize it's okay, it's a process. It takes a little bit of time, you know, a couple of weeks off, but you will be back. So for me, like 160 for 3 isn't my best. I think my best was 200 for 5, which was a few weeks ago. And I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to get there really quickly. So instead of doing nothing and just waiting for the pain to go and then coming back and getting frustrated and all those things, slowly start reintroducing direct work into the exact muscle that you injured, as long as there's no pain during that process, and you'll gradually build up. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, it's just fixed. So for me, there was small pain. I was doing 50 kilograms was my first squats back, then 80 kilograms, then 100 kilograms. And it was like, oh, this is gonna be so long. Now all of a sudden, 160 on a very, very demanding quadricep focus exercise and no pain, but I'd like to keep it that way. I'm happy that there's no pain. If I did more reps, which I could have, maybe that would have started aggravating. No need. Leave room to be able to go forward. Anyway, so that's set number 1. I'm gonna do 2 more sets of this. Why don't you watch it from another view? So you know that my side view looked however it looked. The focus is to be upright and press the hamstrings on the calf. Why don't you watch it from another angle so that you too can use this movement. Very comfortable again. I'm resting about 5 minutes because I'm not maxing out. If you've been following me for long enough, you know when I do go really, really heavy, I like to rest about 8 minutes, 5 minutes in between. So this is stiletto squats, the first exercise. Remember what my promise was at the start of the video. I'm gonna show you the 2 best quadriceps exercises that you can do. Of course, that's my opinion, and I have a bias towards squatting, and it's my channel, so I can tell you what my favorite exercises are. But you know, let's be real, let's be unbiased now. I love a high bar stiletto squat. Other alternatives, if the focus is purely quad growth and not strength, hack squats, even leg press if you perform it in a specific way where you're able to get that same position, which is hamstring press against the calf in the bottom position, pushing through the balls of the feet. Either of those, maximal knee bend, hamstring on calf, any of those. My favorite squat, because those leg presses and hack squats have much less carryover towards an actual squat because you're not strengthening your core. So if your goal is a little bit of strength as well, whether it's you want to be good at squatting or you play a sport like rugby or martial arts and you want to have a strong body, squats with an actual barbell free weight are going to have a much better carryover to your whole body strength than those machine exercises. So these days, a lot of people are now saying machines are better than free weights, and they're not adding context. But the context to that statement is if your goal is purely to build muscle and you have zero regard for functionality. So what is functionality? Your ability for that strength work in the gym to carry over to what you're doing in your sport, which I'll always favor performance. I want to be useful. If anyone says that squats are bad for building muscle, they just don't know how to position themselves correctly to build quadriceps, and now you guys do. So anyway, I'm gonna do one more set, and then I'm gonna go to my second best exercise. I don't wanna call it second best, I don't wanna prioritize. It is a must, actually. It is a must to pair this exercise with your squats if your goal is complete quadriceps development. Let me explain why. Quadriceps, how many muscles in quadriceps? I'll give you a clue. What does quad mean? Of course it means 4. So there's 4 heads of the quadriceps, 3 of them being vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and vastus intermedius. Vastus, 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 all they do is cross the knee joint and all they do is extend the knee. But then the 4th muscle is called the rectus femoris, which crosses the knee and it crosses the hip. It flexes the hip and extends the knee. Now when I squat, they are conflicting actions. Knee extension, hip flexion. But I'm doing knee extension, hip extension, right? So when I come down in a squat, when I bend my knee, it stretches the quad at my knee, but I also bend at my hip, so it shortens it at my hip. So those are conflicting actions. And then when I stand out of the hole, I'm shortening it at my knee when I contract it, but then I'm lengthening it at my hip when I stand straight. So the length of the rectus femoris doesn't change, it stays the same length, which is why if you're trying to build quadriceps and all you do is compound movements, so all the squat patterns, lunges and squat patterns, whether it's with a leg press, hack squat or a barbell, you are neglecting that 4th head of the quadriceps, which is the rectus femoris. The best way to target biarticular muscle, so biarticular means it crosses 2 joints. The best way to target it is to isolate it. Fix the hip joint and use the secondary action, which is knee joint extension. So therefore, if you want complete quadriceps development, do your favorite quad exercise. For me, it's a stiletto squat. For you, it could be a hack squat or a leg press. Secondary exercise, add leg extension. And that's the magic. 2 exercises. Nothing fancy. 2 exercises. Who'd have thought?
Do you have any magic pills in the leg extension? I think you want.
There's a few magic pills and we're going to get there. You know, you want everything at once, Musti, don't you? You're like a dopamine addict. It's like, give me more, give me more. I got to save a little bit, you know what I mean? I got to save a little bit for when we get there. I'm going to show you a few little tweaks that you can do on the leg extension, but we'll get there in a moment. I've got one more set to do, and I've got to make that perfect. 3x3, 160 stiletto squat. Let's get it. And that is a stiletto squat.
You go.
Yes, bro.
Why do red plate? Does it have like things you can stand on?
Really great question, actually, and I do have things I can stand on. So a lot of people do the ramps, and I do like the ramp, but for me, there's one fault with that. So I've got this. Here's the problem with using this for your heel elevation. It only points in one direction, which is straight forward. So if I want to do this squat, I've got to point my knees forward, which is great. But for me to achieve maximal depth, I like to point my knees outward slightly. When I point my knees outward slightly, I need to point my feet outward slightly. And have a look at my ankles when I do that. They cave in. So when I use the plate, it allows me to position my feet in the exact direction that I want my knees to go in, and it's a much more comfortable position for me. So for me, I'm not saying the slant's bad, but if you're gonna use a board that only gives you one direction, which is straight forward, you need for your knees to point straight forward. And when you want to achieve full depth in a squat, opening the hips. So this is called hip joint flexion, right? So we get a certain amount of degrees of hip joint flexion, but if we open our hips or abduct slightly, we get a few more degrees of hip joint flexion. So flexion and abduction is going to allow most people, not everyone, but most people, to achieve the maximal range of motion. And the best way to do that is actually with a plate, so you can point your toes in the same direction that your knees want to go. That was a good question. Okay, exercise 2. This is the magic, leg extension. Not much to it, except for one little trick. We're fixing our hips, so that means that the rectus femoris isn't doing anything to the hip joint, and the only joint that's working is our knee joint. So that doesn't just isolate rectus femoris, it actually hits all 4 heads of the quadriceps. So sometimes people get carried away and they say, this is a rectus femoris exercise. It is, but it's all heads of the quadriceps exercise. But there's one way that you can pimp this exercise, and that is to slightly lean back. What that does is it increases the stretch on that muscle. So when you're upright, it kind of shortens that rectus femoris, but when we're leaning back, it creates more of a stretch position. I can lean back by arching my back, or I can lean back by stretching the pelvis. So what I think about doing is pissing up a wall as well, right? So this is where there's a slight advantage of putting the rectus femoris in a stretch position before you do the leg extension. So I'm gonna do 3 sets of 8 to 12, go a little bit heavier. That was my first steel set. And then that is my complete quadriceps day. That's all you need. Of course, that's not all you need for all leg muscles. We've still got hamstrings, glutes. Okay, so that's just quadriceps. So we'll cover that on another day. Until then, happy quad building, everybody. Now you know how to build quads. It's not just squats, it's how you perform the squats. And it's not just one favorite exercise. Pair it with leg extensions and you are good to go. Hope you enjoyed that session, and I'll see you guys next time. Take this one to failure, by the way. That's the goal, not the squats. So that's the difference between should you train to fail or not. It depends on the exercise. Squats, it's gonna ruin your technique. But if I do this to failure, my technique stays the same. No, that wasn't complete failure. I could have done more. You know I could have done more. But I'll do more in the next sets.